And a happy Wednesday to everybody here. Josh on the wrong lead, joined as always by Mr. Andrew Champagne for another episode of Drankin' Champagne. Andrew, how have you been, man?
Tired. Dead tired. It's been a very, very busy week for a number of different reasons. The good news is I'm about to go on vacation. I don't want to say bad news, but just news of note. Thank you. The news of note is it's not a resting vacation. My fiance and I are going to be going to Denver. There's a lot of hiking going on, a lot of outdoorsy stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun, but I'm going to sleep very, very well at the hotel once we get back. So we are recording this on Tuesday night. I fly out on Wednesday. If you're watching this and you're wondering, oh no, what's going to happen with Andrew's Saratoga content? I'm working ahead and I'm going to be up most of the night writing up Thursday and Friday to where I can work up Saturdays on the plane and only have to do Sundays at some point when my lovely fiance, who enjoys sleeping a lot, is out cold. So that'll minimize the amount of time that I need to spend working on Saratoga stuff when I am on vacation. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I love going to Denver. It feels like I go there every 5 years or so. That's just the way it's worked out for the last 15, 20 years. It's a fun city, plenty to do. Making my initial voyage to Coors Field for a Rockies game on Saturday night. I have heard nothing but good things about that ballpark. I know of a number of very good restaurants in that area. We're going to Rocky Mountain National Park. It's going to be fun. It's been a busy week as far as work goes. It's been a busy week as far as freelance work goes too. Saratoga, of course, just finishing up its first week. Shatin finishing up its season over the weekend. So yeah, lots going on. A lot going on. Josh, you doing okay, buddy?
Yeah, we just got obviously we got our stream scheduled for Thursday, so we will be joined by Mr. Matthew DeSantis, Mr. Naira Betts himself, to cover the Naira Betts Haskell, which is being run at Monmouth Park, and then a couple other stakes. I think we're going to jump around both Monmouth and Saratoga. So we got that coming up on Thursday, and I'm going to be recording, I believe, with Trust the Prophets, doing their daily double show that they do. I forgot the name of it off the top of my head, but I will share it on both the On the Wrong Lead Twitter as well as my own at Cherry Drink. So you guys will be able to find that. And then we're just going to have more content coming out. But, you're talking about taking vacation to a place I've never been. I've never been to Colorado. I've never been to Denver. But another place I've never been, Andrew, is the state of California. And I have officially booked my flights for Breeders' Cup.
Hit the applause button. Hit the applause button right now.
So I will be flying into San Diego along with our good friend Caleb, the good-looking third of On the Wrong Lead. He obviously is qualified for BCBC. Using his dad's pick or using a missed punch. I mean, it depends when you ask him how it happened.
Nothing to do with the fact that Caleb maybe knows what he's doing as far as handicapping.
Absolutely not. Nothing to do with that. But yeah, so he qualified for BCBC. Mark seems to really want to buy in, and so I was not going to go this year, and instead I was going to do my normal track trips, which is usually a week in Saratoga, a couple days at Kentucky Downs. But, I looked at the pricing for Kentucky Downs, and that could still happen. But, flights for me down to Nashville or Louisville are usually cheap. I can usually get them for $100, $150 round trip, right? So if that happens, great. We'll still do that. But I saw the prices of the tables that we normally get, and they are astronomical. I think per seat they're about $350 a person right now. I think the first year we went, they were closer to 75 or 100. So they just keeps on going up and up. I, no one's really committed yet to who's going, so I'll see where that goes. Saratoga, I think, just not going to be in the cards because I would essentially be going by myself. Now, Andrew, I know you're going to be there. Obviously, Matt and Sarah, we're going to be there the week that I could get out there, but I would have to stay by myself. And just looking at the Airbnbs and hotels, it just didn't make a lot of financial sense to do that when Breeders' Cup is going to be somewhere I haven't been before, and I was like, I'm just going to commit to this, and so that's going to be my big, I think, track trip for the fall. Um, so going to be, hopefully, it's going to be all three of us from On the Wrong Lead there, and maybe we'll get some fun house content. I know Caleb's already started looking at Airbnbs, so yeah, that'll be coming up, and then. I also booked a flight to Las Vegas. So I'll clap myself on that one. And wouldn't you know it, I came a couple thousand points short of maintaining my status. So darn, looks like I need to get another trip in. And my wife is actually going to New York in the middle of December to fulfill a lifelong dream of hers, which is to see the Rockettes. My wife loves Christmas. She loves Hallmark Christmas movies, loves watching those, loves decorating for Christmas, loves the Grinch most of all, but everything Christmas she loves. And, she's always wanted to see the Rockettes, always wanted to go to New York to see the decorations around Christmas. So, we normally go to Vegas in December or November, December, and do all the Christmas stuff out there. But with her going to New York, she wasn't going to really have the time off to go to Vegas. And, maybe I might have convinced a couple of friends to sneak a trip to Las Vegas when she's in New York. So we'll be going there middle of December. So got that kind of planned out. And yeah, so I have some stuff to look forward to. My wife always likes to joke that I usually have my next Vegas trip planned sometime between the last day I'm in Las Vegas and the time I land. And wouldn't you know it, if I wasn't messaging my friends the last day we were in Vegas, like, hey, when are we coming?
Yep.
So got that planned. And yeah, Breeders' Cup I'm really excited for. Now I have to look for tickets, and that navigating that is probably going to be a nightmare. I know what I'm not going to do, and I'm not going to spend $1,500 like I did at Keeneland because that was, whew, talk about a waste of money that was. But yeah, I'm excited. I've never been to Del Mar. I've never been to California. So San Diego, I hear nothing but great things about there. So really excited to go.
San Diego is an absolute blast. It is one of my favorite cities on the planet. There are so many really cool things that you can do there, not even counting the fact that, hey, there's a world class racetrack close to the beach. I don't want to say on the beach. The saying is where the turf meets the surf, whatever. The camera angle's a little bit deceptive. The one that they use from the grandstand, they're zooming way in, and the beach is sort of off, across the street a little bit. It's not as though you can just walk off the backstretch and dip your feet in the water. It's not quite like that. But yeah, there's a bunch of fun things to do down in San Diego. Hit me up, and I will be able to set you straight on a couple of things. It's a fun place. That's a lot to look forward to later in the year for sure. As far as trips go for me, I'm going to Denver in a couple of days, headed to Saratoga in the last week of their meet. So I'm actually flying back west on Labor Day. Vacation time situation, just needed to fly back on Labor Day the way it stood. So got that planned, got my Vegas trip planned for Thanksgiving weekend, and I'm starting to mull over my trip home for the quote unquote holidays. So we'll see how that goes. And then after that, the next big trip I'm taking is my honeymoon. So, got to plan for that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always great to have have vacation and stuff, looking something planned out. But yeah, I'm really excited for Del Mar. I think actually they are gonna run the Thursday as well.
Yep.
When I look at the calendar, so I think they're starting their meet. I think probably like a week or two earlier than they normally do.
No truth
Um,
to the rumor that they're calling it Threaders Cup. Oh, you think that sounds ridiculous? You think Threaders Cup sounds ridiculous? Well, Thurby sounds ridiculous too, people. Yes,
you know,
I hate fun almost as much as Josh does. Almost. It's close.
no, I thought you were gonna say almost as much as I hate money,
I mean,
because
no. I can't possibly hate fun as much as you hate money. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about the early pick five on Friday at Saratoga. That's called foreshadowing, kids.
yeah, I didn't realize that this was just an entire setup for you to just rant. So first you're ranting about Thurby, and now I know you got a rant set up for one of these races that we're going to talk about here. Why don't we
Me
just
ranting about a race. Perish the thought, Joshua. Perish the thought.
let's just we'll jump right in here. We're going to start at race 1. So we're going to cover this early pick 5 here on Saratoga Friday. Give you something a little bit different. Obviously, there is a stakes race in this sequence, and I thought that this was a little interesting little sequence here. I thought there were a couple of places you could take a stand against a couple of vulnerable favorites. I thought in the sequence, but Andrew, I think our tickets are, very greatly, and I feel like normally you're the one who's maybe a little bit more spread, and I'm the one who's a little bit more thin. And it looks like we flip flop today, but we'll talk through this a little bit here. Race 1's going to be a 5.5 furlong sprint on the turf. Obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday night. There has been just an absolute monsoon that hit Saratoga, I believe, this afternoon. So, by Friday, we're hoping that we're going to be on the turf. But obviously, if this comes off the turf, plan accordingly for that. But 5.5 furlong turf sprint here, maiden special weight for 2-year-olds. And our morning line favorite is the number one, Governor Sam, at 8-5. I have him as a lone A. I have him as an A. Andrew, you have him as a single. Talk to me about Governor Sam.
You don't need any more in this field than number one, Governor Sam. Governor Sam debuted in a very ambitious spot in a stakes race at Gulfstream Park. Now, you see Gulfstream Park in May and you're thinking, oh, I don't know what the quality of horses are running there. I don't know how seriously to take that. The winner of the Royal Palm Juvenile gets a fees paid berth to a race at Royal Ascot. That's a serious race. It's a great gimmick. They drew 11 horses, including several first time starters, and this one did not run badly. Was sixth beaten 3 lengths that day after dueling through some very serious fractions. This one hasn't run since. There were a couple of reasons for that. George Weaver had a run in with Heisa over a metformin positive. Not sure if the plan was to transfer that one to another barn or wait it out. But I also think these connections were eyeing Saratoga, given a couple of different reasons. For one thing, this horse seems fit up and down for that 5.5 furlong turf sprint that he gets in this particular spot. You see very notable connections that aren't afraid to run in big spots. I think Governor Sam leads from Flagfall to That's All in here. There are a couple of intriguing firsters that I'd like a little bit more if this race was longer. Specifically, if you're playing exactas, use the 7 test score underneath. This is a horse whose dam is a half to a grade 1 winner by the name of Coffee Click. There's some really talented horses in that female pedigree. You see the female families of a multiple graded stakes winner named Admission Officer. You see a grade 2 placed horse. You see a stakes placed horse. There's some really nice horses on the bottom side of that pedigree, but I see Looking at Lucky on the top. I see Kitten's Joy on the bottom. I see Graham Motion. I think this is a horse that wants to go a mile or a mile and a 16th and not necessarily 5.5 furlongs. Number 8, No Evidence, meanwhile, is probably the other first-time starter you want to consider. You see a pedigree that's not all that special, except for the fact that Vacomas have been winning everything in sight for incomprehensible reasons. If you watched Vacoma run a couple of years ago, maybe the most crooked looking stride I have ever seen from a top notch racehorse, but he's throwing 2-year-olds that can run, despite the fact that I don't think he was getting a world class book of mares. If you look at what this horse sold for in April of 2024 at OBS, you see a price tag of $325,000, despite a pedigree that's on the mass side. This one impressed a couple of people. I just think Governor Sam is the class of this field. I can't justify going more than one deep while using a horse that's probably going to be about even money. I'm singling Governor Sam and moving on. Josh, though, needs to hit the defensive B alert button on himself right now.
I don't think using a 8-1 as a B is a defensive B.
Defensive B.
That's absolutely not a
Nope,
defensive B.
defensive. You're playing defense because you don't want to get knocked out in the first leg. We've all been there. I'm not judging
That
you,
is
but I'm
absolutely
just
not.
saying, if you like the one enough to use on the ticket at that one's likely price, throwing others in there is just, it's not optimal ticket construction. Do not make me get horse racing Twitter on you, given a couple of the battles that have been picked involving tickets this week. You don't want to go there with these people.
Now, if you look at the rest of my ticket, this makes a little bit more sense.
No, it doesn't.
So Gene and Jude, the two horse, is another one I'm going to use here. Jose Ortiz sees fit to ride this first time starter for Jack Sisterson. Jack Sisterson actually with first time starters isn't awful. However, he is awful debuting on the turf. However, when you look at the pedigree here, you got Kitten's Joy on the top. Obviously, Kitten's Joy tends to want to go a little bit further, but you have Mr. Greeley on the bottom, who's more of a sprinter pedigree. And you look at this dam, Hugo West Girl was obviously a stakes winner. Has had 5 starters so far with 1 turf winner, and has been pretty productive. As a dam with 3 winners out of those 5 starters, and 1 actually being a stakes winner. This is one that they shipped up to Saratoga pretty early, and have been working up there. So I think that this might be one that's a little bit well meant, seeing as Jose decides to get a board here. Obviously, at the 1 is going to be tough, a little tough to beat, but I mean, I don't know. You look at those stakes races. You look at a horse that was on the pace, and kind of just fell apart a little bit. Maybe I'm trying to poke too many holes in this one, but yeah, I'm going to use this too, Gene and Jude as well. Just because I see a couple things there I like. I think the price is going to be right. Obviously, 8-1 on the line, and I'm just going to go with these two.
Yeah, and I'm just going with the 1 here. Very simple. If the 1 doesn't win, I lose. It's not going to be the first single on my ticket for sure. In fact, there are multiple singles coming up in the next couple of legs.
Yeah, in race 2, you have another single here, which is going to be mile 16th on the inner turf. $50,000 claimer, non-winners of 2. You're singling this 8 Chad Brown horse, Dia Matrona. Talk to me.
So this is a perplexing horse in this particular spot. Last year, this horse ran fairly well in a couple of starts over in France. They saw fit to ship this horse overseas, and they ran her not just in any stakes race, but the Grade 1 Natalma at Woodbine, which was won in runaway fashion by She Feels Pretty. Somebody thought Dia Matrona was a runner because that horse was 9-1 in a Grade 1 race last fall. She goes to the sidelines, comes back at Monmouth, and runs like a horse that needs a race. I have no problem drawing a line through that effort. She was competitive most of the way through and just seemed like ran out of gas. I think that's justifiable given the fact that that was this horse's first start since September 16th and just the second start since mid-June of the previous year. Dia Matrona shipped up to New York, has been training in New York, which I think is a very good sign for Chad Brown. I say that because while with dirt horses, it's not as much of a red flag as it used to be, seeing a Chad Brown horse train at Monmouth and ship up. With turf horses, I still think it is a red flag. I see Diamatrona training at Belmont, training reasonably well, comes in here, gets class relief running for a $50,000 tag. And I think this one is very, very live, second off the long layoff. I know Chad has two in here. If you're watching us on YouTube, first of all, go on down below, hit all those buttons. They really help us out. I see a Roddertees Jr. riding number 9. It's hot in here. That gave me pause for about 5 seconds until I saw the owners of It's Hot in Here. These are owners that Roddertees Jr. rides a lot for. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if either Michael Dubb or Madicat Stables said, hey, listen, can you make sure we get IRAD on this horse if you're going to run this horse for a tag? And I feel like that's what Chad wound up doing here. Just reading the tea leaves a little bit. It's Hot in Here is a horse that ships up from Monmouth. And as I've mentioned, when I see that with turf horses shipping up, I think that's a red flag. Dirt horses, not so much. The dirt courses at Saratoga and Monmouth, they're a little bit different, but you can ship and win. It's not unprecedented. Diamatrona to me looks like the Chad Brown you want to bet in a race that honestly doesn't seem like a strong one for the level, assuming, of course, that we wind up staying on turf. Josh mentioned that there was a lot of rain that swept through on Tuesday night. It doesn't appear as though there's going to be a lot of rain falling on Wednesday at Saratoga, and Saratoga dries out pretty quickly. I don't know if the turf course is going to be firm, but I do think they're going to be running on it. And if they do, horse number 8 in race number 2 is my second of 3 singles on this pick 5 ticket, simply because I think Diamatrona has enough back class to be intriguing. And if that one doesn't win, given the lack of quality elsewhere in the field, Josh, I honestly don't know who does.
Well, I'll tell you who does. Actually, my top pick in this race is going to be the number 4 here,
So that's the
and
horse
that's
I wound up landing on in second in the pink sheet on Friday. So I don't think you're totally off base.
yeah, Wings Like Eagles, and you know, part of this is a pace play. Watching the turf races that I've seen at Saratoga, it seems like you want to bet a closer. You want to be closing. You don't want to be on the front end. And when I looked at this race on optics, you know, I was kind of looking to see who's going to be coming from off of it. And I'll tell you what, man, this 4 is a huge Q2 square above the par line, and he just looks like he's gonna, or she, excuse me, is going to get a really nice pace to run into, and I think is going to be able to close into this. Now, if you look back at some of the races that she's run, her best races have been with slightly faster paces. If you kind of look through, and I'm highlighting these on the PPs, all these with these plus paces tend to be kind of the better races, you know, that she's run. And you see the late pace figures here, a couple of them in the 90s here. So I think this is the best closer in the race. So I'm going to use this one 7-2 on the morning line. I do think that it's going to be kind of a flat race with the 2 Chads plus this horse. I think you know. This is kind of a tough race because you're getting a lot of these droppers, right? Um, Obviously, this is a horse that's been running an allowance company since breaking its maiden on the dirt, and you know is now dropping down to a 50K claiming level. So a bit of a drop, but you got a couple others here. The 3 from Hello I thought was a little interesting here on the drop. Obviously, dropping from State Bred and then coming into this open claimer, but. I thought was one that was a little bit interesting. The race 2 back, I think, does fit in here with the rest of this group. But ultimately, I landed on my second choice as this one Backstretch Rose. This is obviously another presser type. This is one that, if you kind of look back at the 2 turf tries, you know, did show a little bit of, especially the first race at Ellis Park, showed, you know, was off the pace by 10 lengths and basically came up to finish third by a neck in kind of a blanket finish there. Obviously was favored that race, probably should have won that race, but I just think this is another one that has sat off the pace and has shown a pretty good closing kick, both on the dirt and turf. Obviously, he's coming in here, having broken its maiden over at Churchill Downs, and is coming back here to try the turf here at Saratoga for the second time. I think it's a bit more of a stretch than the four. Obviously, you're getting 10-1 on this one, but I just thought that run style wise, this was one that made a bit of sense. Um, as you know, I think fitting kind of the profile of the track that I've seen in races so far. Now, obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday. We have races on Wednesday, races on Thursday. A lot of things can change. There's going to be more moisture in the track. This could be a race that I completely flip on, depending on how the track's playing on Wednesday and Thursday. But from what I've seen so far, I want closers. I'm going to take the four, and I'm going to take the one.
So it's interesting with Wings Like Eagles, who, as I mentioned, I picked second. When I was looking through the form at this one, I saw 1 for 15. Not crazy about that. I did see the same closing kick that you mentioned, but I also see a horse that I think has a little bit more versatility than we're giving him credit for, excuse me, because Josh, find this horse's lone win and tell me how she did it.
On the lead.
Yeah, I think this one has a little bit of speed. On the inner turf at Saratoga, you don't necessarily need to be on the lead. I don't think it hurts you to have that first flight trip. And I think Wings Like Eagles may very well get that kind of a trip because I don't think there's a metric ton of early speed in this particular race. Wings Like Eagles could absolutely run well. I just very much preferred the 8 in here. And to me, yeah, you can make an argument for Wings Like Eagles, but I'm singling and I'm keeping the tickets sort of skinny and spreading later where I think you need a little bit more coverage.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess not to ruin the surprise, but you have a third single in this third race, which is the Curlin Stakes, which in our kind of pre-show discussion, you let me know this is one of your favorite races on the entire Saratoga calendar.
If by favorite you mean should not be carded, then yeah, sure, let's go with that. I'll keep my handicapping discussion short on this. Unmatched Wisdom should not lose. Having said that, Unmatched Wisdom would be single digit odds in either the Jim Dandy or the Haskell coming up later this week. Instead, we get a shorter field for the Haskell and we get a shorter field for the Jim Dandy because we need to run the Curlin for 3-year-olds which have not won a graded stakes at a mile or over in 2024. Why are we cannibalizing these races with this event that, in terms of stature, is nowhere close to that of the other two races? I would prefer to have the Curlin on the Travers undercard as an alternative for that race rather than taking a horse that would be, say, 5-1 or 6-1 from the Jim Dandy or Travers. Let's take the 30-1 shots out of the Travers. Like, what's the downside to moving the Curlin? I don't understand why we're vulturing horses from the bigger races on the calendar to run this one, which, by the way, only attracted a field of 6 horses. I don't understand this. I know there are times where I go off half cocked on ridiculous rants. There is no argument for the Curlin Stakes to be where it is on the calendar, given its effect on the Jim Dandy and Haskell this weekend. You're telling me Unmatched Wisdom wouldn't have had a chance in either of those races? You're
Well, I don't
telling me
think.
Corporate Power would have been totally over his head? I don't think he would have been. You're telling me the 4 horse in there would have been completely over his head? I don't think so. I think those horses would have been contenders in those spots. So run them there. Save the Curlin for Travers Day. Have that act the way the Easy Goer did on the Belmont undercard for a few years as an alternative for the horses that need a softer spot as opposed to connections that just want a softer spot. But yeah, Unmatched Wisdom is 2 for 2. I think he's going to be 3 for 3. This is a horse that has not been tested yet, stretched out to 2 turns with aplomb last time out, and to me seems like the class of this group. If Unmatched Wisdom does not win, my ticket loses. And yes, that's 3 consecutive singles to kick off this pick 5. And to the ticket police out there who said, well, why aren't you giving out a cold pick 3 ticket? I intend to play a cold pick 3 ticket. Mind your own business.
And to the ticket police, I am not using the 4 to 5 in the spot.
Josh
So
hates money.
I mean, I might hate money, but I think looking at the sequence, the only way to make money, I think, is going to be to get around this horse. And I think your argument, right, that you make for getting rid of this race, which I 100% agree with you.
Thank you.
This is an allowance race. I mean, this is an allowance race. It's a restricted stakes races. It's a fucking allowance race. Like, and I've seen the way that Chad spots his horses, and the fact that he would spot his horse here just it sets an alarm bell off in my head, because I agree with you. This seems like a horse that should. I mean, if he's won a maiden by open lengths, won another an allowance race by 5 lengths, why isn't this horse in the Jim Dandy? Why isn't this horse in a different stakes race?
Because the
And
Curlin exists.
I mean, because it exists, but I feel like this is like he's trying to protect this horse, and I think maybe he just doesn't think that this horse is as good. So I'm gonna go ahead and assume that putting this horse in the spot is a sign that maybe he doesn't, maybe a little bit of oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe he's had some doubts of how good this horse is. Like you said, on paper, I mean, this horse should absolutely just walk over this field. I do think that the two corporate power is a very nice horse, and that's obviously my top pick in here. And this is the horse that won the Sir Barton, another restricted stakes, off the pace. And I with these kind of lightly raced horses, I do like to see these horses that have passed other horses. Obviously, Unmatched Wisdom did pass a horse his last 2 times, but I think Corporate Power showing the ability to kind of close from fifth, fourth, and kind of pass all those horses just makes me think he's a little bit more professional. So I'm going to go with the 2 as my top pick. And then the other horse I'm going to use most prominently is his 5, Elephant's Ear. Kenny McPeak shipping this horse in from Churchill Downs, and on Brisnet, this horse has the fastest figure by a mile on Brisnet. Now, obviously, I'm sure if I pull up DRF or if I pull up Timeform, they're gonna argue with me on what that race last time out was, but
So
that
I have the DRF past performances right here, and I can tell you that horse ran a 90 Beyer speed figure. That's the third highest last out number in the race. So it's a decent number,
yeah.
not an all world number.
And you look at the works for this horse coming into this race, and the last work 3 days ago, Bullet Work 59-4. I feel like Kenny's got this horse cranked, ready to go, coming off a really really nice effort in an optional claimer at Churchill Downs, and he won at a humongous price, 47-1. So yeah, I'm really interested in this horse coming in here. 12-1 on the morning line. Brisnet even has this horse as the second rated horse on Prime Power after the 1. So I thought that this horse made a ton of sense, and I really like the price on it. David Aragona tends to not miss, and I think that the 1 is going to take so much money that it's just going to be. I think you're going to get your price and everybody else in this race. Another horse I want to talk about, I don't think I'm going to use, but darn if optics didn't just like make me think that this horse might have a shot in this race, and that's this 3, Katir Vizcaya. I have no
Katira Vizcaya.
Katir
Yes.
Vizcaya.
Vizcaya is the last name of an employee of the New York Racing Association that does a lot of their Spanish speaking stuff.
Yep. And man, on optics, this is just a huge square right in the middle of the plot, and it just got the wheels turning on. Hey, maybe this is a horse that's got a little bit more ability than is kind of shown in the form. If you kind of cross the line through that Tampa Bay Derby, or actually 2 of the races at Tampa, The horse kind of shows a pretty decent pattern of improving. So, if you kind of, especially if you go from that Saratoga race last year to what the last figure at Parks was, you see a bit of improvement there. And this might be a horse that's just, maybe getting good at the right time. You see Luis Saez, taking him out. Now, he hasn't had the hottest start to the meet, but, when I see Luis Saez on a horse that's got some early speed or tactical speed, I'm interested, especially on the dirt or the turf, either way. So, 30 to 1, this is going to be your longest price on the board. I thought he was at least a little bit interesting. If you got maybe a little bit more budget and you're really intent on beating this one like I am, maybe one to include as well. I think on the ticket I have created, I don't have him on it, but I thought he was at least a little bit interesting, mostly because of the way he plots out on optics.
I do think Katira Vizcaya has a shot to potentially sneak into the bottom rung of exactas and trifecta tickets. There's not a ton of early speed in the race. Luis Saez being on to me indicates, okay, we're going. I don't know how long he wants to go, but I do think he's the likely early pace setter, and there are worse places to be in a race like this. We don't agree on much in this spot, but we agree that number 4 timeout just isn't all that appealing. And I don't think he was flattered by the runner up from his last race, Military Road, coming back and not running well in a spot over the weekend. That race came back much better on DRF figures than on Briz figures. DRF gave this horse a 95 Beyer speed figure. And I'm not saying that Beyer speed figures are trash. They're not. They're a very good tool, but I think that figure's inflated a little bit. I think timeout is potentially sitting on a bounce race. And I also think the same can be said for Elephant's Ear, who last time out ran a 90 Beyer speed figure and had been in the mid 70s for the prior 4 starts. I understand why you like that horse. If he repeats that race, he fits. But I think the chances of Elephant's Ear repeating his last out effort just aren't there for me. And with that in mind, to me, Unmatched Wisdom just seems like the class of this field and like a pretty easy single.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I have the optics plot up for those of you watching on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, Corporate Power, I mean, just looks to plot out really well. Obviously, Katir Vizcaya also plots out really well. And then the closest horse to the par line is Elephant's Ear. Um, they seem to have Unmatched Wisdom on the lead in this spot, and just not a very big square up there. So I mean, it just does look like he's a little vulnerable. He's vulnerable in this spot. So yeah, that really was kind of what led me to really try and get around this horse in this spot. But we obviously saw this race a little bit differently. Only one of us can possibly win
Unless it's
here.
a heater.
Unless it's a heater.
One of these times that's going to happen where we're going to wind up both getting, each end of a heater. One of us is going to have a chalk. One of us is going to have the 20 to 1 shot that dead heats with the chalk. And one of us is going to feel like we got screwed. That's just the way it's going to work.
Yeah. And in true us fashion, I think this next race is really funny because we have one horse in common. And then I think I have 2 more horses. You have 3 more horses, and none of those are in common whatsoever
Yeah.
here.
This is a race that my good friend Tom Amello would call a chaos race. Your guess is as good as mine with regard to which horse is going to be favored in the 4th. This is a $32,000 claiming event. The horse we have in common is horse number 4, Rocco Strong, who gets wheeled back first off the claim by Rudy Rodriguez. I picked this horse second. Last time out, he ran second behind a horse that got, in the words of our friend Caleb, a candy ass trip on the lead, going 1 1/8 on opening day. Rocco Strong ran fine in that particular race. The leader just didn't come back. Rocco Strong gets wheeled back by an aggressive trainer. Rudy Rodriguez does this. He's done this ever since he worked for Rick Dutrow, who did this a lot. I don't think the quick turnaround is a problem, and I think Rocco Strong has a pretty big shot. Now, other than that one, I am going to use your lukewarm 3 to 1 morning line favorite. Again, I don't know what this horse is going to go off at. I do not envy the job of Mr. David Aragona in this particular race because I think you could have made a case for 3 or 4 horses being favored. Number 8, Command Performance, takes a massive drop in class. And I just think this horse hates Oaklawn. Josh, do me a favor. You've got that nice red pen tool thing there. Do me a favor and cross out all the Oaklawn races for me, please. Thank you very much. You do that, and you're left with a horse that last time out lost all chance at the break, and before that did a lot of really good things. I think Command Performance has a lot of back form, drops in for aggressive connections. If they win and they lose the horse, it's not the end of the world. Command Performance is a horse that I am going to be using, even though I don't necessarily have a super strong opinion about him if he gets bet down. If the horse gets bet down to 8-5, 9-5, that's probably over bet. But I think it's more likely he's going to wind up being one of 3 or 4 horses in that 3-1, 7-2 range. Other than that one, and other than Rocco Strong, I'm using the 10-1 on the morning line entry of Majestic Frontier and Optic Way. I think Optic Way in particular is interesting, stretching back out to 2 turns, second off of a brief layoff for a trainer that can be pretty sneaky with horses on the front end. This one I think is going to be a pace factor, and there's a chance he just doesn't stop on the front end. Again, we're handicapping 3 days out. We don't necessarily know the weather forecast. If there is still moisture in the track, you need to use horse number 6, Yono. Yono's career record on a fast dirt track, 0 for 18. Yono's record on a wet dirt track, 3 for 3. Yeah, you need to use this horse, especially with Tom Amos as the trainer. Gets Tyler Gaffleone to ride. Slight drop in class off of a decent race last time out at Churchill Downs. And if there's any moisture in the track at all, I think he's going to be a reasonable competitor in here. I'm going 1, 4, 6, and 8. Josh, you're using a couple of other horses in here. I can't fault you. This is a hard race.
Yeah, and I think Command Performance makes a ton of sense. But man, do I hate this horse. Like I was one of those fools that was betting that horse when he was still a maiden running in stakes races.
So he made your never again list.
He made my never again
Every
list.
handicapper has a never again list, and the strike rate of horses first time on the never again list is remarkably high.
Well, luckily he's been on the never again list for probably at least a year or two. So
how many times is it where you say never again on a horse and the next time out the horse jogs?
yeah, I will say on optics, horse fits. Is kind of a loner out in Q2, but they optics really likes the 4 Rocco Strong on speed, plot, and class. Has it as above average and above on all 3 of those markers. So I've seen a couple horses come back from those types of races and or those types of stats, and they've all run really, really well, if not won. So I definitely do think that Rocco Strong's set up here to run a nice race. The other 2 horses I used were the 7 Skylander and the 9 First Glimpse. The 7 Skylander is coming in here off a win at so I think it's the more traditional type of claimer, right? Horse got claimed for 12,500. They run him right back 25,000. And what's Orlando Noto do? Let's move him up a class. Let's see how he does here. So horses coming in off a good form, off a win. Obviously, Orlando Noto pretty good when repeating these horses off the claim. Dylan Davis stays aboard. And yeah, I think that this is a pressing type horse. And when you kind of look at the pace setup for this race, I do think that you have a couple of front runners in the 1A, the 5, and the 4. So I do think you're going to get a somewhat honest pace here. So I think it will set up nicely for a horse like the 7 Skylander. And for the same reasons I like the 7 Skylander, I also like the 9 First Glimpse. One that is been very, very popular at the claiming box and has been going back and forth. Seems to to do his best running at this level, at about the 32,000 claimer level. Has kind of bounced up and down, up and down. But his last win comes a three back at this level at Aqueduct. Last time out ran at the $40,000 level. JJ decides to stay aboard here, which I always like to see, because JJ can basically get whatever amount he wants. He doesn't ride necessarily a full card anymore. And the fact that he stays aboard this horse, I think, means that this horse is well met in this spot. Horse has been working regularly, not necessarily super fast, but man, Fernando Abreu, second time off the claim, 26% in 19 tries. You're getting 5-1 on this horse, and once again, I think this is one that's gonna, get I think an honest enough pace to be able to show his kick from kind of a mid pack position. So I like the 9, I like the 7, but of all the horses, I like the 4 the best here, which is the horse that we have in common.
So, talking about Skylander and the 9 horses 7 and 9, I would like both of those horses much more if we were at Aqueduct and this was at a 1 turn mile. I think 2 turns is a question mark for both of those horses. If we were at a mile, I think they play significantly better. I just think that 2 turns may be a bit beyond their scopes. Having said that, though, I understand it if you think the race collapses and you're using those horses. I just think this is the right level, wrong distance. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see them run in a similar level race out of that godforsaken chute
Hmm.
next time out, because that seems like much more of a desirable route for both Skylander and First Glimpse. And that's the reason I didn't use either of those horses. Would I be stunned if they ran well? No. But when you're looking at a race like this, I generally like horses that have shown 2 turns is something they can handle. And that's still a little bit of an unknown with those two.
All right. Last race here, race 5. We're going to be going
Finally, a favorite I can go against.
a mile and 16th on the inner turf. I'm glad you and I saw this one the same, because the 3 positive carry is an 8-5 Chad Brown favorite, Manny Franco aboard. And this is the type of Chad Brown horse I love to bet against. And the public, for some reason, still bets these horses. Um, you know, Caleb kind of taught me this kind of angle with when you look at these super trainers, like a Chad Brown, like a Todd Pletcher, Bob Baffert, name whoever you want. Um, Generally, when they have a maiden and they go 0 for 3, 0 for 4, you really have to have a really good reason to bet that horse, because generally that's the time when these trainers are kind of either really really dropping them down in class into maiden claiming, or they're just shipping, sending them off to a different trainer, or if you're Bob Baffert, you're running them on turf. um I mean, they gave this horse 7 chances, and I guess maybe you could say that, I mean, the horse has been a little snake bitten, running second, third, and running third twice. But I mean, we're talking a horse that they ran at Laurel, they ran at Monmouth, which I know Caleb likes to call a fake Chad horse. This is just not for me. If this horse wins and beats me, I mean, I think even if he wins, he's going to be just the absolute underlay of this entire sequence. Even more so, I think, than the favorite that you singled in race 3. Um, I just don't see it with this one. If you buyer beware if you bet or claim this horse. Um, Andrew.
So let's go through the career of Positive Carry here. Positive Carry debuts, runs second at Saratoga. Okay, no problem there. They shipped this horse to Laurel, not to run in a maiden race, but to run in a $150,000 stakes race. Didn't have a great trip that day, was the 2-1 favorite, finishes fourth. Okay. They put the horse away the rest of the year. She comes back on the synthetic at Gulfstream Park. Maybe she needs a race. Starting February 14th, she runs out of excuses. Second beaten a neck at 6-5. third beaten 2 lengths at 8-5, second beaten a length and a half after leading in mid stretch at about 3-2. Then they shipped her to Monmouth. Josh, she's supposed to win that race. She's 6-5 against a field of maidens at Monmouth that's certainly of lesser caliber than what she'd been running against. And she doesn't just not rally like we have seen. She's one paced. She's third beaten almost 4 lengths. They drop her in for a tag. To me, this seems like a dump. And when you look at a work tab where you see a turf horse trained by Chad Brown coming in after working at Monmouth, again, if you see a dirt horse coming from Monmouth, it's not quite as much of a red flag as it was maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. That used to be an automatic toss. But Chad Brown's team at Monmouth does do a good job, more so with dirt horses. When you see turf horses stabled down there that are working at Monmouth and they come up to Saratoga, for me, that's a red flag. If Positive Carry breaks through on the drop-in class, am I going to be absolutely shocked? No. But this one's 8-5 on the morning line. I think is going to be that price, maybe a little lower. I can't bet that horse. I absolutely cannot play a horse like that at that one's likely price. So in this particular instance, my top selection is another class dropper. That's number 8, Our Finest Hour. Our Finest Hour is a former Chad Brown trainee. She debuted last year at Laurel, ran a couple of decent races at Gulfstream and Tampa, where she made up some ground. She then goes to the barn of Mike Maker, runs at Aqueduct, gets absolutely no pace to run at. None. That horse was never going to make up any sort of ground in that race. If you're betting a closer, you're looking for an excuse like that. I think there's a little bit more pace signed on here. I think it helps this one's cause that the third place finisher from that race came back to win. The blinkers come on. Luis Saez comes on. I think we're going to see Our Finest Hour be a little closer to the pace on this particular occasion. I think that's going to be a big, big help. I am 4 deep without using Positive Carry in this particular instance. I'll use number 1, Not Guilty. I'll use number 4, Capodonna, who, Josh, I saw you liked a fair bit. And I will also use a pretty big price in the form of number 6, Classy Mischief. Classy Mischief last year ran 4th in a $200,000 stakes race at Monmouth. That was on dirt. If you look at this one's pedigree, you see Into Mischief on the top. Into Mischiefs can run on anything. You see a mare out of Include. Include's influence is more so felt on muddy tracks and on turf courses. I think there's a chance Classy Mischief winds up moving forward on the grass. And if you look back last year, you see that they tried to get her on the grass on July 30th at Saratoga. She ran second out of the godforsaken Wilson chute behind a horse in Ms. Sense that has some talent. Classy Mischief is 20-1 on the morning line. At or near that likely price, I think, is a must-use in any exotics. And Josh, I don't know if you wanted to hear that from me because you like the horse as well. Handicappers are a rare breed. We don't like it when other handicappers like our horses sometimes, but you got a big ol' A by that one, buddy.
Yeah. And just to correct, you have the 1, the 6, the 7, and 8 in here.
1, 6, 7, and 8. Sorry about that. I mentioned Capodonna. That's my mistake. The 7 is actually the one I'm using instead of that one. That's Redo.
Yeah.
Instead of the 4. It's 1, 6, 7, 8. Sorry about that. I was looking at the race before that where I did use 1, 4, 6, and 8. Live podcasting, folks, and also pen and paper here. I'm old school. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I think you kind of explained it with this 6. Gary Contessa not, 0 for 15 the last 15 times he's tried for horse first time on the grass. But I see the pedigree. I see Into Mischief on top, which can run on both surfaces. 13% first time on the turf. And, I look at this dam who hasn't produced a turf winner yet, but 2 stakes winners, 4 winners off of 9 starters, and it just seems like a very, very productive dam. And I think that maybe is just gonna, getting this horse on the turf might just be what this horse needs. I agree with you. You know, I love seeing that they tried to get this horse on the turf at Saratoga last year. I think that run where she ran second is probably the reason they kept trying this one on dirt. Is because they're like, well, this horse ran second in a maiden. Maybe this is a dirt horse, but yeah, I like the six classy mischief at a long price. Obviously, 20 to 1. Uh, we're not expecting this horse to just like run off the screen or anything. But I think this is one that could kind of wake up based off of you know just kind of looking at the rest of this field and not really being too inspired by too much in here when you especially when you look at the short prices, and one that's got a little bit of a turfy pedigree on top. You see Junior gets aboard here, and him and Gary have they're 2 for 9 the last 2 months. So Junior's ridden some pretty live ones here for Gary Contessa, so like to see that. Yeah, 20 to 1, love to see that. Obviously, you talked a little bit about the seven redo, who's a closer coming in here, is one that you kind of look and the turf races just look a lot better than the synthetic and the dirt tries here. Has been here at Saratoga working pretty decently. And when I look at the bottom side of a lot of these horses, this is one with the dam that's produced a ton of turf winners, 5 turf winners out of 6 starters. So this is one I'm definitely interested in. Kind of, I guess reaching a little bit for I think it's kind of a short price for a horse that's 0 for 7 and has had 5 turf tries. But once again, when I talked about the track profile. I think that a closer, you want to be closing here, and I think if you kind of look at the fastest speed figure they've run, it's been at Keeneland when they had a bit of pace in front of them. Now, obviously, the horse ran ninth, and was beaten by 6 lengths, but it's just going to be a much easier field than anything that this horse has faced so far. Running back at this level once again here on the turf, and
Yeah,
especially
just really quick before you move on, I'm happy you talked about Redo and you echo a lot of the reasons I used that horse again. Just sort of skipped over that one, looking at the wrong race in my sequence. But last time out, they kept this horse in and off the turf race. Shocker. This one isn't a dirt horse. Draw a
Mhm.
line through back. The 2 and 3 back efforts are fine. There's some early 2024 efforts at Gulfstream that are fine. This one would not be a shock.
Yeah, and like I said, this horse plots out really
Yeah.
well. It's a nice big Q two square, Q4 square on the standard plot. So this just seems like one that is going to get, I think, a little bit of pace to run into here. Um, the interesting thing about Classy Mischief is, and we'll talk about this briefly, is because they ran it in that stakes race and they've been running this in these tough dirt races. They really think that this horse is classy. They
So
I think they think that this horse has been running against better than what they're going to get here, obviously with the drop. So I think that like I said, along with the fact that they tried to get this one on turf earlier, is kind of why I was pointing towards that one a little bit.
So, what I will say in response to that is note the trainer. Gary Contessa is not averse to taking shots, and sometimes those shots pay off. He won 2 stakes races last summer at Saratoga, including the Grade 1 hopeful, at an absolutely bonkers price. Gary Contessa is not afraid to take shots and run horses in ambitious spots. And in this instance, I feel like this one's been running in the wrong races for the right reasons. If you've got a 2-year-old that finished fourth, beaten 2 lengths in a $200,000 stakes race, why wouldn't you keep running that horse on dirt until you absolutely had to?
Yeah. And then the 4 Capodana, I love the cutback on this horse. This is a horse that they've been running, mile and 3/16, mile and eighth, mile and 3/8 last time. they're cutting this horse back down to the mile and 16th here on the inner turf. I think that's going to be helpful for this horse. His horse that's got a bit of condition in her, and this is another horse that has had on the bottom side a lot of success. 3 turf winners from 4 turf starters, or from 4 starters here, and a stakes winner I think in there as well. So turf pedigree top and bottom with Magdalio de Oro and Arch. So, uh, and kind of looking at those pedigrees, not necessarily ones that win super early, not very precocious. So the fact that this is the 4th try isn't, super concerning to me. And I love the cutback, I think, here. I mean, obviously, 2-turn pedigree, but they've tried, I think, going a little bit longer, and now that they're cutting this horse back, I could see maybe this one waking up a little bit on the cutback.
I would be more bullish if the rider of that one had decided to ride back. You see a lot of riders there. Like if Flavian Pratt had seen fit to ride back here in this spot, I'd be a little bit more bullish. To me, I see a horse that they tried going much longer because maybe there wasn't that turn of foot that you see in turf races. And sometimes that works. You see plotters go out there and run 12 and change furlongs for about 9 miles, and you can make a really good living with a horse like that. They dropped this horse in now for 75. I've got to see it here. I wouldn't be shocked if Capodonna responds to the drop in class, but prefer others in this spot.
All right. So Andrew, your ticket here, you have an $8 ticket.
Yep, $8 starting with 3 singles. And yes, folks, if you look, that is 5 legs, not 4. If you've been on horse racing Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. 1 with 8, with 1, with 1, 4, 6, 8, with 1, 6, 7, 8. That's 16 bets for $8. And yes, I will be playing an early pick 3 that singles all 3 of those horses. It's not going to pay squat, but I will have it multiple times.
Yeah, and I'm going to be 1, 2 with 1, 4 with 2, 5 with 4, 7, 9 with 2, 4, 6, 7. And hopefully my math is correct.
It is
a $48 ticket.
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, what else you got going on this week?
As if I don't have enough going on already. AndrewChampagne.com for all of my Saratoga stuff that will be up online in its usual format. It will also be in the pink sheet if you're on track at Saratoga. Will not be affected by my Denver trip coming up this week. Got a lot of really fun things planned there, as mentioned, going to Coors Field, doing a lot of hiking, seeing a couple of museums in the city of Denver. They've got a whole bunch of those, taking a road trip, seeing some parts of Wyoming that I've heard are absolutely lovely. It's going to be a really good time. And my fiance, bless her heart, has just gotten out of teaching summer school, so she's got a little bit of time to unwind before the next school year starts. My goodness. Anybody that is offering a back-to-school sale in mid-July, there's a special circle of hell out there for you.
Yeah, and then we'll be streaming Thursday night with Matthew DeSantis covering the Haskell and some stakes over at Saratoga. So we'll have that. Mark has obviously been putting out some shorts, and we'll have some other content popping up here and there. Until then, obviously check us out at ontherwronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Andrew is at Andrew Champagne, andrewchampagne.com, winnersandwhiners.com, and how many legs are there in the pick5.com. We will catch you guys later. Let's make some money, guys. Have a good week.
Thanks for the shirt, Mark.